My parents told my kids that birthday presents were for grandkids we love, not mistakes we tolerate, while my brother's children opened bikes, gaming consoles, and cash cards in front of them. My son cried in the back seat on the way home. 1 year later, I appeared at their door with something no one saw coming. My father dropped the gift box on the porch. The gift table had 11 presents stacked on it, all wrapped in the same blue paper with silver stars. My son counted them twice. He was 6. Standing at the edge of the tablecloth with his hands at his sides, watching his cousins tear through wrapping paper like it was Christmas morning in July, he did not know yet that counting would not change the number. Colton's 3 kids got everything. Kayla got the mountain bike with the pink streamers. Bryce got the gaming console, still sealed, the kind that costs $400 before you even buy a game for it. And little Finley, who was 4 and barely knew what money was, got a cash card in a bright envelope with $150 loaded on it. My mother handed each gift personally, smiling for each one, watching each kid unwrap with her hands clasped together like she was watching a graduation. My boy stood 4 feet away the whole time. Nobody handed him a thing. Simone touched my arm. Her fingers pressed once, twice. That was her way of saying we should leave before something broke open inside the room or inside me. But my son had made a card. He had spent 40 minutes at the kitchen table the night before with a box of crayons and a piece of manila paper folded in half. The front had stick figures, 5 of them, labeled in blocky 6-year-old letters, Grandpa, Grandma, me, Mommy, Daddy. Inside, it said, "Happy birthday, I love you," in blue crayon so hard the paper had dented. He walked up to my mother with it, held it out with both hands, the way kids hold things that matter to them, elbows locked, chin slightly down. She took it without looking at it, set it on the counter behind the punch bowl, and turned back to Kayla, who was trying to fit the bike helmet over her ponytail. My son stood there for another 4 seconds. Then, he walked back to Simone and pressed his face into her leg and did not say a word. That was when my father leaned over to Colton's wife. Bethany laughed, and the laugh was sharp enough to cut through the noise of ripping paper and excited screaming. My mother looked at Jude. Then, at me. Then, she said it. Not quietly. Not to the side. Standing at the head of the table in the dining room of the house my own hands had renovated, in front of 15 members of my family, with my 6-year-old son close enough to hear every syllable. Those 2 are construction babies. Hank, born in a rented apartment above a nail gun and raised on drywall dust. Colton's children have futures. Grant's have a ceiling, and it is the same one he puts up for other people's houses. The room did not go silent. Bryce plugged in the console. Finley dropped the cash card and picked it up again. Colton took a sip of iced tea like his mother had said something about the weather. My father nodded. Not a large nod. A small, tight confirmation. The kind a man gives when he agrees with something he has heard 100 times before. Simone's hand was on my arm again. This time it was not a press. It was a pull. The card my son had made was already under a stack of paper plates. Picking it up, putting it in my back pocket, walking out of the dining room without a word. Buckling Jude into his car seat in the driveway while nobody called after us and nobody came to the door. That is what the next 3 minutes looked like. Then the mirror. His face changed in the rear view. His chin pulled in first, then his bottom lip, then his eyes filled up all at once, the way a glass fills from the bottom. He cried the way children cry when they do not understand what they did wrong. Not loud. Confused, a small, defeated sound from somewhere deeper than disappointment, from the place where a kid keeps the belief that grandparents love you no matter what. The dashboard clock said 4:47 when the sound started and 4:53 when it stopped. 6 minutes. When he finally went quiet, tear tracks catching the afternoon light on both cheeks, he had fallen asleep with his mouth slightly open. 11 miles to our apartment. Carried him inside still sleeping with his shoes on, because waking him up into a world that had done that to him felt like a thing no father should do. Then the kitchen table. The birthday card pulled from my back pocket, bent at the corner, one stick figure's head smudged, both palms flattening it. The words "Happy Birthday, I Love You" staring up at me while the light in my son's bedroom made a pale line under the door. That was July 13th, 2024, the day something shifted. The birthday party was not the beginning. It was the first time they said it out loud. My parents had two sons. Colton came first, 4 years older, and from the day he walked into a pharmacy program at State, he became the centerpiece of every conversation my mother had with anyone who would listen. She carried his achievements in her mouth the way some women carry photos in their wallets. Always ready, always polished, always offered before anyone asked. Construction was my choice. The weight of a framing hammer, the logic of a load-bearing wall, the satisfaction of watching a structure go from dirt and concrete to a thing a family could live in. By 22, running small crews. By 28, a licensed project manager working under Lyle Parrish at Parrish and Associates, one of the most respected mid-sized construction firms in the region. Lyle is the reason the word boss never felt right for him. When a client pulled me off a commercial job site at 24 because he thought a project manager should have gray hair, Lyle drove 40 minutes, walked onto the site, picked up my material calculations from the clipboard, and held them in front of the client's face. "The man who did the math gets the clipboard," he said. "That is how buildings stay up." He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. The client signed the variance that afternoon and never questioned my crew again. 10 years working for Lyle after that. Not because the pay was the best. Because when a man treats your work like it matters, you do not leave. Take home. $68,000 a year. Not pharmacy money, but honest and mine. My parents never said construction without a tone attached to it. When relatives asked what their sons did, my mother would say, "Colton is our pharmacist." And then, if pressed, "Grant is in building." When my father introduced Colton to his friends, he said, "This is my son, the pharmacist." When he introduced me, he said, "This is Grant." No job, no title, just a name. Simone and I married when I was 26. Her parents were divorced. Her mother waited tables in Coleman. My mother met Simone once before the wedding and said to my father in the kitchen, thinking nobody was listening, "She is what happens when you let a boy with no direction pick a girl with no foundation." Simone heard it. She never told me until years later, but the way she held herself in that house changed from that day. Less smiling, less speaking. Hands always busy washing dishes or folding napkins, so she did not have to stand in a room where she felt admitted by mistake. Colton's first child had gotten a $700 crib, a hand-knitted blanket, and a visit within 8 hours. When Jude was born, my parents sent a card, pre-printed, 4 days late, my mother's name at the bottom. 3 years before the birthday party, my father called about the house. Built in 1979, roof leaking in 2 places, kitchen subfloor flexing under your weight, back porch pulling from the foundation by 2 inches. A contractor quoted $142,000. My father said, "Can you do it for less?" Not less. Free, 14 months. Weekends, holidays, days taken off from Lyle's jobs. Roof, subfloor, porch footer, upstairs rewiring, gas line. $94,216 in materials on my credit card. Every receipt kept. Not because of a plan. Because project managers keep receipts the way other people keep socks. My parents never offered to pay me back. My father said, "That is what family does." At the cookout after the renovation, my mother thanked everyone who contributed to making this house a home again. She looked at Colton when she said it. Colton, who had not lifted a board or written a check or driven a single nail. Everything got let go. Until the day my son stood at a table with empty hands and my mother called him a mistake she tolerates. Then nothing got let go again. The trust document found me, not the other way around. August 5th, 2024, 23 days after the birthday party. The county recorder's office, pulling permits for a commercial build Lyle had contracted. Medical office conversion, the kind of job that requires cross-referencing zoning amendments and building code variances going back 15 years. Morning at the long counter on the second floor, requesting file after file. photocopying documents that smelled like dust and correction fluid. While Dorothy, the clerk, searched the zoning index, the system pulled results alphabetically by parcel owner. My grandfather's old property and my parents' lot were in the same subdivision, same last name, so every Holbrook filing came up in the same search window. Most of the results were ordinary. Tax assessments, boundary surveys, a drainage easement from 2011. But one entry near the bottom had a different filing type. It said, Memorandum of Irrevocable Education Trust, Est. 2016, recorded with the county as required by the trust's terms. I almost scrolled past it, almost closed the index, and went back to pulling permits for a building that had nothing to do with me. But the word trust next to my grandfather's name stopped my hand on the mouse. My grandfather had established a trust. He died in 2019. Nobody in my family had mentioned it. Not at the funeral, not at the will reading, not ever. 9 pages. Standard legal formatting. Prepared by an estate attorney in Shelby County. The language was precise, the kind of language a man uses when he wants to make sure nobody can bend what he wrote after he is gone. The trust was funded with $72,000 from my grandfather's savings, designated for the educational benefit of all biological and legally adopted grandchildren of Harold and May Holbrook, to be distributed in equal shares upon each grandchild reaching the age of 5. All grandchildren. Equal shares. Not Colton's children specifically, not certain grandchildren, all of them. Jude turned 5 in March of 2023. Colton's oldest, Kayla, turned 5 in 2020. Bryce in 2021. Finley in 2024. 4 children, $72,000, $18,000 per child. Dorothy told me the distribution records would take 2 to 3 weeks. Paid the $12 processing fee, drove back to the job site with a photocopied trust and a manila folder on the passenger seat, and did not call anyone. Not my parents, not Colton, not even Simone. Because what was in that folder was not a conversation yet. It was a question, and the answer was in a filing cabinet somewhere in another county office, and until that answer arrived, the question stayed in the glove box next to Jude's birthday card. The records arrived August 22nd. 3 pages, a disbursement ledger showing 4 entries. Kayla Holbrook, age 5, September 2020, $18,000. Disbursed to custodial parent, Colton Holbrook. Bryce Holbrook, age 5, March 2021, $18,000. Disbursed to custodial parent, Colton Holbrook. Finley Holbrook, age 5, January 2024, $18,000. Disbursed to custodial parent, Colton Holbrook. Jude Holbrook, age 5, March 2023, $18,000. Disbursed to custodial parent, blank, not 0, not denied, blank, no disbursement requested, no claim filed. My son had been eligible for over a year and nobody had told me the money existed. The trustee listed on the administration page was my father, Hank Holbrook, the man who nodded when my mother called my children mistakes. 2 pieces of paper went into the glove box that afternoon. Jude's birthday card and the disbursement ledger. One with stick figures and the words I love you. One with a blank line where his name should have been. That night, a legal pad and a pen at the kitchen table. Not a revenge list, a records list. The kind a project manager makes when he finds a discrepancy in a build and needs to trace it back to the source. The floor had shifted, and the only person in the family who knew how to read the cracks was the one they never bothered to watch. Lyle picked up on the second ring. "Tell me what you found," he said. No preamble. That is who Lyle is. When a man who never complains calls after hours, the complaining can wait. The facts come first. The trust, the blank line, the $54,000 that went to Colton's kids, the $18,000 that never reached mine. Lyle listened without interrupting. Then he said, "You need a forensic accountant, not a lawyer. Lawyers come second. First, you need to know the size of the hole." The name he gave me was Darlene Oakes. $275 an hour. subcontractor audits for parish and associates on 3 different projects. She did not miss things. Engagement letter signed by Friday. Almost stopped there. Almost told myself that $18,000 in a blank line were the full picture and a probate complaint would close it. But my grandfather used to say, when he walked me through the workshop behind his house where he built birdhouses with joints so tight a playing card would not fit between them, if the first board is crooked, every board after it is a lie. The trust was the first board. Darlene started with the disbursements and worked backward. Within 2 weeks, she had Colton's pharmacy filings, my parents' property tax records, and the financial affidavits my father submitted to the trust administrator. To request a distribution, the trustee had to certify that no eligible grandchild had been excluded without cause. Your father checked no on all 3, Darlene said, turning the photocopies toward me across her desk. The third one was filed in January 2024. Your son became eligible in March 2023. That is not an oversight. That is a false certification. But the affidavits were not the worst of it. Attached to the 2021 filing was a supporting note, second son employed in construction management. Annual income approximately $180,000. Does not require educational trust support for dependents. Who provided this figure, Darlene asked. My brother. And your actual income? $68,412, before the $11,000 I spent on my parents' kitchen that year. Darlene closed the folder. So your brother inflated your income by $112,000 to justify excluding your son from a trust your grandfather set up for all grandchildren equally. The lie was the frame. The trust was just what hung inside it. Colton built the excuse. My parents used it. And believing it made the math feel clean. If Grant is rich, skipping Jude is not cruelty. It is practicality. If you have ever discovered that the story your family told about you was not the story you were living, you know how this feels. It is not the lie that breaks you. It is the number of people who repeated it without checking. If this is hitting close, consider subscribing to Family Secret Tales. These stories do not stop at the discovery. They go all the way to the end. Darlene called on a Saturday in October. Come to my office Monday. Not the phone for this one. I almost did not go. Sunday night in the truck, engine off, birthday card in my hand, the crayon letters catching the streetlight through the windshield. The trust was enough for a filing. The salary lie was enough for a confrontation. Part of me, the part that had spent 34 years being the son who kept the peace, wanted to stop digging. Because every thread pulled made this look less like a mistake and more like architecture. Something designed. Something with load-bearing walls and a foundation poured years before anyone noticed what it was holding up. Monday, 8 a.m. 6 pages of county property records on Darlene's desk. Your parents' house, she said. The one you renovated. 4 months after you finished, your father filed a home equity line of credit. Appraised value, $341,000. Before your renovation, assessed at $178,000. Your work nearly doubled the value. How much did he borrow? $140,000. Wired to Holbrook Family Pharmacy, LLC. Your brother's business. November 2022. The walls holding the appraisal that funded the loan that financed my brother's pharmacy were walls my hands built. Every dollar of equity my father borrowed was equity created with my weekends, my credit card, and my back. Both signatures on the HELOC application. Hank Holbrook, Patrice Holbrook. They both knew. They both signed. They both chose. 3 pieces of evidence now. 3 layers. The trust they hid. The lie that justified it. The loan they built on my labor. Each one worse than the last. Each one requiring the one before it to work. But there was a 4th. The one that moved this from financial dispute to something done to my son's name. November 28th. Thanksgiving night. 9:47 p.m. Renee, my cousin on my mother's side. I need to tell you something, and you are not going to like it. Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house. Dessert. Men watching football. In the living room. Women at the table. My mother started talking about Jude. She said Jude might not even be yours. She said Simone was already seeing someone when you got married and that you were too trusting to ask questions. She said that is why they do not include him the same way. The phone was against my ear and the hallway floor was under my feet, and both of those things felt very far away. Who else was at the table? Aunt Diane, Aunt Loretta, Meg, your mom's neighbor, the one with the flower boxes, and me. And nobody said anything? Diane said, "Well, that explains a lot." Loretta nodded. Nobody pushed back. Nobody called you. The lie sat on the table, next to the pecan pie and the good china, and everyone let it cool until it became part of the story. Not because they believed it. Because believing was easier than asking my mother why she had excluded a 6-year-old from a trust and called him a mistake to his face at a birthday party. If Jude is not mine, then skipping him is not favoritism. It is caution. If Simone was unfaithful, then the marriage was already broken, and the exclusion was just wisdom. The lie did not need to be true. It just needed to exist long enough for people to repeat it. I almost drove to my parents' house that night, already in the truck, already on the road, already past the gas station on Route 9 where the cell signal picks up. Jude's birthday card was in my shirt pocket, and my hands were tight on the wheel, and for 3 miles the only thing in the cab was a son who had just found out his mother told the family his child might not be real. Not a project manager, not a man with a plan, just a son with a crumpled card in his pocket and a fire behind his eyes that wanted a destination. Pulled over at a church parking lot. Engine running, headlights on the brick wall. 11 minutes of sitting still while the fire burned down to something colder and more useful. Then the phone, Darlene first. Then an attorney named Frank Ott, whose card Lyle had given me 2 weeks before. 7 months. December 2024 to June 2025. Civil complaint for unjust enrichment, $94,216. With a petition for equitable lien. Probate trust violation demanding Jude's $18,000 plus interest. The HELOC property records packaged as evidence of how the stolen equity was used. Guarantee non-renewal on Colton's pharmacy loan. Expiring end of quarter. Cease and desist for defamation with written statements from Renee and one of the aunts. Frank sat across from me in his office on the first Monday of December and laid out what the filings would look like. The renovation claim is strong, he said. $94,216 in documented improvements, no written contract, no repayment. That is a civil complaint for unjust enrichment, and we petition the court for an equitable lien against the property. Every receipt, every permit, every material invoice is attached. The trust violation goes to probate court separately. Your father signed false eligibility certifications. The judge will not like that. And the HELOC? Once we file the civil complaint and the court records the pending litigation against the property, the bank gets automatic notice. A title dispute on a property they hold a lien on triggers their own compliance review. They will freeze further draws while they assess their collateral position. We do not need to prove HELOC fraud. The lawsuit does the work. What about Colton's loan? Your guarantee agreement has an annual renewal clause. The next renewal is end of this quarter. You notify the bank in writing that you will not renew. Without your guarantee, the bank reassesses Colton's creditworthiness on his own financials. They will restructure or call the note. Frank paused. And the defamation. Your cousin and one of the aunts are willing to provide written statements about what your mother said on Thanksgiving. That is enough for a cease and desist with teeth. 5 mechanisms, each one with real consequences. Each one pointed at a different wall of the house my family built around the lie that my son did not count. If you are still here, you know this is not about money. It is about what a family says about you when they think you will never find out. Hit that subscribe button for Family Secret Tales. The confrontation is coming. It starts with a gift box. June 10th, Frank sent certified letters. Hank and Patrice Holbrook. Colton Holbrook. Holbrook Family Pharmacy, LLC. Summary of filings. Demand for response. Notice of pending legal action. Renee texted 4 days later. Your mom got a letter. She did not open it. Sitting on the kitchen counter next to the microwave. Good. The letter was not the ending. It was the clock. July 13th was 33 days away. Same table. Same blue paper with silver stars. Same house with my roof on it and my father's HELOC inside the walls. July 13th, 2025, 1 year to the day. 6 cars along the curb. 2 more in the grass by the mailbox. Through the front window, the dining table set with a blue tablecloth, Colton near the kitchen doorway with a glass in his hand, my mother carrying something wrapped in blue paper with silver stars. Same wrapping paper. 1 year later. The gift box on my passenger seat was 18 inches long, 12 inches wide, wrapped in the same blue paper with silver stars from the same party supply store on Route 4. 7 pounds, 4 ounces. Most of that weight was paper. Legal documents are heavier than people think. My father opened the door. Eyes to my face, then to the box, then back. I brought a birthday present, I said. His expression moved through 3 stages. Confusion, something that looked almost like relief, like maybe this was the year the quiet sun came back. Then caution. The flicker a man gets when he remembers there is an unopened letter on his kitchen counter. He stepped aside. 15 people in the dining room. 3 aunts, 2 cousins, Colton, Bethany, their 3 kids, the neighbor couple from Birch Street who owned the hardware store. Renee in the corner by the window. She saw me, and her hand went to the back of her chair, and she did not sit down. The box went on the center of the dining table, between the plates and the fruit salad. Blue paper catching the overhead light the same way it had a year ago when 11 presents sat here and my son had none. Open it, I said to my mother. She pulled the ribbon and lifted the lid. On top, face up, flattened but creased at the corner, Jude's birthday card. Crayon stick figures. Happy birthday, I love you. The card she put behind paper plates 1 year ago. The card from her trash. The card that lived in my glove box, on my workbench, in my shirt pocket for 12 months. She picked it up with 2 fingers like she did not understand how it had gotten there. Underneath, the civil complaint for unjust enrichment, the trust violation filing, the HELOC property records, the guarantee non-renewal notice, the cease and desist. And on top of the legal stack, the trust disbursement ledger with 3 entries filled in and 1 line blank. 5 seconds of silence. Then the room heard everything. That is a civil complaint for unjust enrichment seeking $94,216 and an equitable lien against this house. That is what the renovation cost. Every receipt, every permit, every material invoice is attached. Once the court records the pending litigation, your bank gets automatic notice of a title dispute on the property they hold a HELOC against. Second document. That is a probate complaint for the trust Grandpa set up in 2016. $72,000 for all grandchildren. You gave $54,000 to Colton's kids and filed the paperwork saying Jude did not exist. That is fraud, Dad, not a family disagreement. Fraud, third stack. That is the HELOC you took out 4 months after my renovation. $140,000 borrowed against the value my hands put into these walls, wired directly to Colton's pharmacy. You used my labor as collateral, and you never told me. Colton had not moved from the kitchen doorway, glass still raised halfway to his mouth. You told them I make $180,000 a year. My W-2 says 68. You lied about my income so they could justify skipping my son. You built the excuse, and they used it. That is not a misunderstanding. That is a conspiracy to defraud a minor beneficiary of a protected trust. Back to my mother. And you told this family that Jude might not be mine. At this table. On Thanksgiving, in front of 3 aunts and 2 cousins. You did not say it because you believed it. You said it because you needed a reason for what you had already done, and a rumor was cheaper than the truth. Patrice's mouth opened. We were protecting the family's future. Whose future? Colton's pharmacy runs on a loan I guaranteed and equity I built. His kids' fund is money you stole from mine. The roof over your head is a roof I nailed down board by board while you told the neighbors your other son was the one who made something of himself. Which part of the family's future did not include my son? This is insane, Colton said, stepping forward. You are embarrassing yourself in front of everyone. The guarantee non-renewal is on page 6. Your annual renewal expires end of this quarter. The bank has been notified that my name will not be on the next one. $120,000 on your own credit. Without my guarantee, your financials do not hold. That is not embarrassment, Colton. That is math. Patrice reached for Hank's arm. The whisper carried across the room. Tell him it was for his own good. My father said nothing. Mom waited until she looked at me. Last July you told this room my boy is a construction baby with a ceiling. You said he was raised on drywall dust. You said the ceiling he has is the same one his father puts up for other people's houses. You said that 3 feet from his face while he held a card he made you with his own hands. Pointed at the documents on the table. The construction baby's ceiling is the only thing keeping a roof over your head. The construction baby's drywall dust paid for the walls your HELOC is borrowed against. The construction baby's nail gun built the equity your favorite son turned into a pharmacy that loses money 3 quarters out of 4. You want to know what a construction baby does when he grows up? He reads permits. He reads liens. He reads trust documents. And he reads the blank line where his son's name should have been. And he does not forget it. Aunt Renee put her fork down. The neighbor from the hardware store stood and walked out the front door without saying a word. Bethany pulled Kayla and Bryce toward the back hallway. Cousin Meg covered her mouth. Colton needed it more than you, Patrice tried. He had the business, the overhead, the children in private school. You have always managed on less. Managing on less is not the same as deserving less. And my son does not manage on less because anyone chose it. He manages on less because you stole what was his and gave it to the son you were proud of and used the son you were ashamed of to finance the whole thing. Hank finally spoke, voice low, cracked in the middle. We are still your parents. My attorney filed the civil complaint Monday. The court recorded the pending litigation against this property Tuesday. The probate complaint was filed Wednesday morning. The cease and desist for defamation went out Thursday. You had 30 days to respond to the letter I sent in June. You did not open it. That is not my problem. Patrice's hand was still on the birthday card. The card was face up on the table between the fruit salad and the legal documents and the wrapping paper chosen on purpose because it was the same paper she used for the gifts she never gave my son. The line carried in my chest for 12 months, written on a piece of scrap lumber at the job site, sanded smooth, thrown away, rewritten and thrown away again until it was short enough to fit in one breath. That card Jude made you said, "I love you, Grandma." You threw it in the trash. This claim is for $94,000. Try throwing that away. The room did not breathe. My mother's lips parted, but nothing came out. Her hand tightened on the edge of the birthday card, and the corner bent again. The same corner that had been a year ago behind the paper plates. My father reached for the box, lifted it with both hands, carried it toward the front door. He meant to remove it from the room the way you remove a thing too heavy to keep where people are watching. He got to the porch, looked down at the top document, the civil complaint. His name on the property. My name on the claim. $94,216. His jaw tightened first. Then his shoulders dropped. Not relaxed, but defeated. The way a beam sags when the load exceeds the span. The color left his face from the forehead down, like water draining from a vessel. His fingers opened. Not fast. Slow, the way a man's hands open when the weight is not in the box, but in what the box means. The gift box hit the porch floor. The lid popped. Papers slid across the painted boards. Jude's birthday card caught the wind and pressed flat against the porch railing. Face up, stick figures in crayon, and happy birthday, I love you. His right hand reached for the porch column and held it. His left hand hung at his side, fingers still open, still shaped around a box that was no longer there. He looked at the card on the railing. Then at me. His mouth moved once, no sound. The way a man's mouth moves when the sentence he wants to say does not exist yet. Then he turned and walked inside and closed the door. 15 seconds later, the door opened again. The framed family photo from the hallway, my high school graduation, all four of us in the backyard with the sun behind us. We are your parents. This is your family. You cannot erase 34 years with paperwork. The frame came into my hands. Turned face down on the porch railing, right next to the birthday card still pressed flat by wind. Glass against wood. One small sound. This is the last dollar. The last favor. The last time I answer this phone. Every payment I have ever made to this family is now on a ledger with a case number attached to it. You do not get to spend my money and then hand me a photograph and call it love. The truck. The engine. The driveway shrinking in the rear view. Both hands on the wheel steady the way they are when the body knows the job is done, but the mind has not caught up. The house did not get looked at in the mirror. Not because of discipline. Because the mirror already held something else. The memory of a rear-view image from a year ago, a boy with tear tracks on his cheeks and his mouth open in sleep, and the knowledge that the boy in that image would never stand at that table with empty hands again. Simone was sitting on the porch when the truck pulled in. She did not ask how it went. She looked at my face and stood up and put her hand flat on my chest, right over the shirt pocket. The pocket that was empty now. The card was gone. She knew what that meant. It is done, she said. Not a question. The fallout came the way structural damage comes, slow, then suddenly visible from every angle. 9 days later, the bank contacted my father. The pending litigation against the property had been recorded with the court, and the bank received automatic notice of a title dispute on a property they held a HELOC against. Standard procedure, freeze further draws, reassess collateral position. The bank sent Hank a letter requesting documentation of the property's current encumbrances and any pending claims. He did not have an answer. Because the claim was from his son, and the amount was $94,000, and every receipt was already filed with the court. Colton's pharmacy loan went into restructuring when the guarantee expired at end of quarter without renewal. The bank required updated financials and additional collateral. His pharmacy had operated at a net loss for 2 of the last 3 years. His profit and loss showed a quarterly deficit of $41,000 that had been masked by the original terms. The collateral he offered was a rental property Bethany's parents had gifted them, appraised at $61,000. The bank declined. Loan reclassified high risk. Interest rate adjusted from 4.2% to 9.1%. Monthly payment jumped from $2,108 to $3,644. Colton called Bethany's father that night asking for a bridge loan. Bethany's father asked what happened to the guarantor. Colton did not answer. The call lasted 90 seconds. The trust restitution moved through probate court in August. Full accounting ordered. Independent trustee appointed. My father removed. Jude's $18,000 plus 14 months of accrued interest ordered disbursed within 60 days. The judge referred the false eligibility certification to the county prosecutor's office. The referral did not guarantee charges, but it guaranteed the word fraud was in a file with my father's name on it. The family group chat, 23 members, 6 years of my mother's careful administration, went silent, not deleted. Silent, Aunt Diane's last message, I think we all need some space. Nobody replied. Patrice sent 4 messages over 2 weeks. Flowers from her garden. A recipe. A question about a cousin's wedding. I hope everyone is doing well. Nobody replied to any of them. The neighbor from the hardware store, the man who had walked out of the dining room without a word, stopped waving when he drove past the house. His wife told Renee at the grocery store that they just feel strange about it now. We had them over for dinner every other month. We cannot do that anymore. The church committee my mother had chaired for 11 years quietly replaced her in September. The pastor called and said they were restructuring the committee leadership to share the workload. The thank you card arrived 2 days later, pre-printed. Nobody signed it by hand. My mother put it on the refrigerator next to photos of grandchildren who no longer visited. The emotional fallout was a single image. Renee described it in November, and it is the one that still sits with me late at night when the house is dark. My father in his truck in the garage, Sunday afternoon. September, engine off, door open. Hands on the wheel. 2 hours, not going anywhere, not coming inside. Sitting in a truck in a garage attached to a house with a lawsuit against it, and a frozen credit line, and a son who used to come every weekend to fix things, and now sends legal correspondence through a P.O. box in the next county. Patrice came out once, stood in the doorway, said his name. He did not answer. She went back inside. He stayed 40 more minutes, got out, went to bed at 4 in the afternoon. He has not called me since. That was the last chapter of the story my parents wrote for me. The one where staying quiet, staying useful, staying grateful for the privilege of being tolerated was the whole assignment. This is the first chapter of the one being written now. Saturday morning in October. Jude sitting in the cart at the hardware store on Franklin Avenue. 7 years old now. Wide aisles, paint samples, bins of screws sorted by size, lag bolts for a deck. Not for my parents, not for Colton. For us. Our deck. Our house. The one Simone and I closed on in October with 14 months of savings and a mortgage rate qualified for on my own name, my own credit. My own $68,000 a year. Jude's $18,000 went into a restricted education account where it belongs. We bought the house the way my grandfather would have wanted. With work. New box of colored pencils in his lap. Drawing on the back of the receipt. Blue pencil, the same blue he always picks first. What are you drawing? Our house. A stick figure on a roof. Arms spread wide. Circle head with 2 dots for eyes, line for a mouth, and the mouth is smiling. Under the figure, in large crooked letters, Dad. The receipt folded carefully. Placed in my shirt pocket. The same pocket where Jude's birthday card lived for 12 months. The card is not there anymore. It is in a gift box on a porch in another town. Pressed against a railing by wind that has probably moved it by now. Or maybe still there. Maybe nobody picked it up. The pocket is not empty. A new drawing. A stick figure on a roof. A boy who draws houses because he lives in one that feels safe. 3 miles east. A house with my roof on it. And a claim against the walls. In a hallway where a family photo sits face down on a railing. The phone rings and nobody from the group chat is calling back. The truck in the garage has not moved since September. And in aisle 9, a 7-year-old boy is picking a green pencil for the grass, and his father is holding a bag of lag bolts, and the pocket over his heart is full again. If this story reached you, if it sat with you the way it has sat with me, then you already know why it got told. Not for revenge, not for the money, for the boy who stood at the end of a table with his hands empty and did not understand why. He is drawing houses now, receipts, napkins, the back of his homework. Every house has a roof. Every roof has a figure on it. Every figure is smiling. That is enough. That is everything. Thank you for being here. This is Family Secret Tales, and if you have a story like mine, the comment section is open.